Hi, Joe Murphy here. We're talking about change in the workforce or workplace. And I want to talk to you about some of the aspects that have been going on around different tables and discussions that I've been involved in. And being a little bit older, I've been in a lot of change. Some of the change I initiated, and some of the change that I initiated, I could have done a much better job. But I was so focused on getting the change implemented, I forgot to do certain things with people. I'm going to admit that. I had 3 turnaround operations during about 20 years ago when I was younger. If you can believe I was younger, I did turnarounds. It sounds like something fancy. It was not fancy. It was a mess. I would get called into organizations. I would take certain people, I would help restructure the organization, I would look for what was profitable, what was not working, and it was typically always about sales and also support. If you didn't have a good product or a good service, the best salespeople left. And then when you didn't have good salespeople, you couldn't get the revenues to fix the support. It's one of these catch-22s, chicken or egg things. But you got to restructure the organization and you got to focus on the marketplace. And what I didn't do was talk to the people directly. I assumed that the people that were my managing directors, the people who worked directly for me, was taking the words that I had and using them to inform other people. And that was my mistake. I made lots of mistakes. That was one of the big ones. One of the things that I also didn't pay attention to was I'm going to tell you what it is in just a second. People's complaining or resistance. Okay. And that's when we have change and we're going to change the organization and fix it, or we're going to do something different in terms of a strategy. What happens is there's something called resistance. We are hardwired to resist change. We like the status quo. If you are watching this video, one of the things that makes you a better leader or manager or individual, even at home, is your ability to adapt to change, to be flexible enough to understand that change is inevitable. I'm going to come back to that one in a minute because I can easily digress and talk about what you need to do to embody being more adaptable or flexible. But we're going to talk about the human experience because you have employees, and those of you in HR have employees or are helping the line managers or the division heads to get a reading on how the people are interacting based upon the change or what they're hearing. And so you're going to start hearing complaints. One of the worst things to do when I did it, I said, okay, people are just whining. People are complaining. That was not a good thing for me to do. I should have, and I want you to do this, if there's an opportunity to sit people down around a table and listen to what they're saying, what you're going to hear past the complaint itself is this word, okay? And I hope you can read it. It's called fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of uncertainty, because you're introducing something into their lives that they have no control over. And I talked about this on yesterday's video. If you give them something to have control over, such as what is their new job going to be, what are the switches, how's it going to look, how can they adjust it to fit the change that needs to take place, they're going to feel some sense of control, which is good psychologically. But the brain, what the brain does, it complains and gossips because what it's looking for is something to say, hey, wait a minute. This is not going to work. I don't want the change. Or I'm going to find other people who are like me who feel the same way. That's a sense of comfort. Okay, so the brain works to protect people. And so if you can understand that this resistance in the form of complaints and gossip is natural. You cannot change that. This is human behavior. But you can use it by understanding that the brain, the amygdala, and the cortisol and the adrenaline that's being secreted into the body gives people this sense of, this is panic. This is something that I need to figure out how not to get along with, and get them to what we would call a safe environment, a safer feeling that this change is going to be for the good. Eventually, it may mean extra work, extra hours, and it may mean shifting your job and learning new skills, learning new technologies, but the change is going to eventually be good. Now, what I tell people now, and this is when some of the things that I'm going to give you to tell people, is you've got a track record. And I want you to stop and just think about it when you're sitting around this table. You've got a track record. After you say, what is your concern? Don't say what you're afraid of, because that's getting passed into a boundary. What is concerning you? And you listen and say, yes, I would be concerned too. And in the past, I used to feel that way, but everything that I have seen in the past that has changed has turned out to be better. In some cases, a little bit more difficult. We hit some speed bumps. But if you'll recognize the opportunity and see the possibilities, and also see that you have a track record, and this is a term that I want you to use. It's called a track record of getting past things. We all have a track record. We have a great track record. If you're over the age of 1, you have a track record. You have a track record of getting over hurdles. And this is so critical that I want to make sure you say it. You have a track record. You have a history of surmounting things, going past things. I'm watching the time on the clock. Remember, the brain's primary function is to protect people. And they are not going to be resilient and flexible until they feel safe. And you as a leader, an HR leader, a manager, direct line manager, your job is to help them feel safe. And the worst thing you could ever do is what I did. Silence people's complaints, because all it does is turn into gossip. I'm 𝗤𝗵, and I'm here for your success. I hope this makes sense. Thanks for watching.